Hi, I'm Kyriaki Birkeland. I'm an actress, I'm a comedic improver, but most importantly, I'm a new mom. The wheels on the bus go round and round, round and round, round and round. The wheels on the bus go round and round, all through the town. The people on the bus go up and down, up and down, up and down. The people on the bus go up and down, all through the town. The wipers on the bus go swish, 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 swish. Wipers on the bus go swish, 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 all through the town. Mwah.
36 for 36 is brought to you by The Late Night Experiment with Motown Maurice. Subscribe today on YouTube.
So I've always wanted kids, and I always knew I wanted kids, but I also always knew that I wanted to be an actor, and as an actor, it's really not a very forgiving schedule for a family, so I didn't know how it was going to happen or when it was going to happen. But in August of 2013, I got married to the love of my life, Brant, and we kind of discussed it and said we thought around the time I turned 30, we want to either start having kids or have kids around that time. So 2 years after we got married, we said, hey, instead of starting when we turned 30, how about, let's have the baby when you're 30. So we started trying, and we tried for about 4 months. Every month I thought I wasn't, and I would get my hopes up and then I wasn't. And then the 4th month I just had a hunch, and I called Brant at work and I was like, hey, I think I'm pregnant. Hurry home, we need to go buy a pregnancy test. So he got home as fast as he could. At the time we were living in Belmont Shore, so we just jumped on our bikes and rode to the store as fast as we could. We got 3 pregnancy tests because I wanted to make triple sure that if it happened. So we biked back as fast as we could. We took the test and we were waiting and waiting and waiting. It was kind of nerve-wracking. And then the timer went off. We went in the bathroom to check the tests, and sure enough, all 3 were positive. And I screamed, and he just picked me up and twirled me around, and I just started crying, and I told him to put me down because I wanted to double check because I thought it wasn't real. So yeah, it was a pretty incredible moment when we found out we were pregnant. I think it was like a few weeks of pregnancy because we found out at week 2, super early on. And I said, Brant, I don't feel pregnant. Is something wrong? I don't know what's going on. I don't feel anything, no symptoms at all. And it was a couple weeks of that, and I was really nervous because you don't see the doctor until week 6 or more. So, but sure enough, at around week 4, it just hit me like a ton of bricks. It was just horrible nausea, vomiting. I was sick all the time. I couldn't get out of bed for months. I had to give up my job. I was working from home at the time, and I was just in horrible discomfort and pain. I had all kinds of symptoms. But sure enough, it got a little bit lesser and lesser. I got used to it. And then at the end of the pregnancy, I went in for my final checkup with my doctor, and she checked me and she said, you're not even dilated. You're gonna be an extra week. I think you're gonna be pregnant next week. And I was due in a couple of days, and I was just so crushed, and I thought I can't do this anymore. I just want it to be over. But I thought, okay, that's fine. We went home. I was a little bit frustrated about it. And then a couple days later, Brant and I were having dinner, and I told him, I'm just so frustrated. I want this to happen, and what's wrong with me that I'm gonna go into labor late? And he said, this could be a blessing. Let's make sure that we focus on our rest, get a lot of sleep, because once the baby comes, we won't get that sleep. So this is an extra week of sleep. So I said, okay. So we went to bed, and sure enough, 45 minutes later, my water broke. He was 2 days early from his due date, and it was chaotic. It was I woke Brant up in the middle of the night, and I said, Brant, get up, my water broke. And he was like, are you sure? And I was like, look, and it was gushing out of me. Everything, the comforter, everything was soaked. And he was like, oh my gosh. So he jumped out of bed. We already had our bags packed. He called the doctor just to double check that we are supposed to come in because my contractions hadn't really started. They said, yeah, get her in immediately. So I just jumped in the shower to clean up a little bit. He made me a sandwich. We packed the car. We got going to the hospital. He pulled up into the emergency room, and I got out to walk, and I just had a contraction and just dropped to my knees in the middle of the parking lot. And he ran inside to get me a wheelchair. So they wheeled me up, and it was about 23 hours of labor and worse pain than I could ever imagine. The contractions were manageable pain where I could just like breathe. We had aromatherapy. I brought soothing music. We dimmed the lights so it would be very soothing so I could just relax and not tense up during the contractions, which really, really helped. And we also had, I didn't think I wanted to be hooked up to anything, but I had them hook me up to the monitors, and so Brant could actually see on the monitor behind me when my contractions were coming. So he would hold my hands and tell me like, okay, one's coming, breathe, breathe, and I would just relax and breathe, and then he would say, okay, it's coming down, and then I would know I can relax. And then toward the end, there were no breaks, and he would just say, okay, this one's coming down, nope, it's going back up, okay, and I'd be like, Grant, it doesn't feel like it's ending, and he'd be like, just breathe, breathe. So he was there with me the whole time, except a brief stint where he slept on the couch in the early part of the labor. But then, 23 hours later, it happened. He dropped, he was ready to come out, 12 minutes of pushing, and he was out. And they put the baby on my chest. They, dried, stimulated him, and they do a lot of skin to skin so he can get used to me and we can bond right away. And the baby reached out and grabbed Brant's finger, and Brant just started crying, and I just started crying. And they tell you that you have a lot of oxytocin and all these like love hormones when the baby comes out, and these hormones are released. And I didn't feel that right away. In fact, I felt a little bit of resentment because I had been in so much pain for so long. And I saw that this baby was the cause of months and months of pain. But that lasted maybe a second, and then I saw his face and he was cuddled on me, and I was just so happy, and I just couldn't stop staring at him. The first night in the hospital, all of our siblings came to visit, and they were in the waiting room, I think, like 10 hours, waiting for Trig to be born. And we texted him a picture right when he was born, but there was they were like whirling us to the postpartum room. They had like checks to do on the baby. They had all this stuff to do. And then finally they let our siblings in. Everybody got to hold him. They were all just like amazed by him. He was so sweet. And alert and strong. He could hold his neck up like immediately. He was just this amazing little guy. And I loved the hospital, everything about it. Like there were people to help me go to the bathroom, feed me, like help me change, help me shower. There was people for everything. If I needed food, they would bring it, everything. They would help with the baby. They would take the baby to the nursery so I could sleep and then bring him back so he could feed. It was amazing. But I really wanted to get home and start being a mom. However, my husband was really nervous to get home and start like parenthood. And he was like, are you sure we should stay another night? Are you sure? He was really nervous. He wanted to stay in the hospital a little bit longer, but after 2 nights, they let us go. And we drove home. I remember sitting in the back seat with the baby and just like super nervous. And from the time we got home, it was just really hard. People say the newborn phase is hard in general, and it really is. But in addition to that, we had a little bit of issues early on. Our baby was losing a lot of weight fast, and so we were back and forth from the pediatrician's office because he was losing more weight normally babies are supposed to lose a little bit of weight in the beginning, but he was losing more than they were comfortable with. And so we had to start supplementing with formula, and we found out that I wasn't producing enough milk for him. So he was like eating around the clock, but I wasn't producing enough for him, so he would just cry all the time, and so I wasn't sleeping. I started hallucinating because I went days without sleeping. I was just a wreck. Emotions, I had all the hormones from the postpartum were there. I was just like crying all the time and just crazy. And then a couple weeks in, he started, we started getting bloody diapers, and there was blood in his diaper. And I told Brant, I have no idea what's going on, so we had to go back to the doctor. They thought it was this, they thought it was that. We had no idea what it was. It was just so much stress and anxiety because you already have the responsibility of this new life that you're in charge of, and then to have all of these issues, breastfeeding issues, bloody diapers, losing weight, all of this stuff going on. So that just like really was wreaking havoc on me. But eventually we found out through a series of things that he was intolerant to a certain number of foods that I was eating. So once we cut those out, the bloody diapers stopped, which was a huge relief. And he started gaining weight when we were supplementing with formula. I still had a 3-month battle with breastfeeding where I was going to lactation consultants, taking herbs, taking medication, pumping around the clock, eating certain foods, eating more fat, eating not eating these foods because they prohibit milk, eating more of these foods because they enhance your milk, and just all this kind of stuff, and just 3 months of stress and trying to produce. And I tried so hard. I got from 1/4 of an ounce, which is like this much milk a day, to 8 ounces, which is like a full bottle. But he was eating like 32 ounces. So it's just like a snack to him. I could not get my milk up. So at 3 months, we just decided, I'm not recovering. We need to stop breastfeeding and move to formula so that we can focus on my health. And it was I just realized this was a lot more than I signed up for. I had no idea all of the things that could happen with motherhood and being a new mom, and just a lot of stress and more pain. So once we cut out breastfeeding, I was able to just focus on my recovery because it wasn't happening. And it was already pretty frustrating because they say you're supposed to be recovered within 6 weeks, and it was already 3 months past and I wasn't recovering. And I was back and forth from the doctor, and my doctor thought it could be this, could be that, could be the other thing, and I just wasn't getting better. So once I started focusing on it, we found out what it was, and it turned out to be 2 different conditions. Basically, it sums up to muscle and nerve damage from the delivery. So I went to physical therapy a lot, and I still am doing medication, exercises, meditation, stretches. It's just a full routine where I have things to do in the morning, things to do midday, and things to do at night on top of the medication and stuff. So I think the hardest part of the recovery was thinking what's wrong with me, because all of my other friends are having babies and recovering and going to work out and get back with their lives. And here I am months and months and months later, even now 8 months later, and still recovering and thinking, what's wrong with me? But once I came to terms with not comparing myself to others, I was able to accept my story and my journey and do the routine I needed to do to take care of myself and not feel bad about it, because this is my story, even though it's not somebody else's story. In addition to that, helping my mindset, around the 6-month mark, Trygve started just wanting to play all the time. He was just so fun. He would laugh all the time. He could recognize that I was his mother. He would just want to be picked up. Things would make him laugh. He would love certain songs, certain stories. And he was sleeping a lot better, which helped because I could sleep more, which helped my stress level a lot. So around the 6-month mark, everything changed. And whereas before I was thinking, what did I get myself into? I'm never doing this again. After the 6-month mark, I was just completely in love and thought, of course I would do this again. I'm so in love with this little person, and I love watching each new stage. I love watching everything he discovers and learns and just watch him grow. And so I think that really was the fun part for me and is the fun part for me right now. This was the hardest thing I've ever gone through in my entire life. I've never had to work this hard for anything in my entire life. But I am prouder of this accomplishment and of my little son than anything else in my whole life. In the beginning, I wouldn't have wanted to do this ever again. But after bonding with him and seeing him grow and falling in love with him, I absolutely want to do it again. And once I fully recover, because I still am in the process, I would love to give him a sibling. And I just know that it's such a blessing, not just the baby and having this beautiful person look up to you and just rely on you for everything, but the hard times are a blessing. I feel like this process and my son broke me down to nothing, to the most humble place I've ever been, and then rebuilt me into someone better, into someone stronger and more patient and more loving. And if I could encourage other women, I would just say, don't question what you're doing. You're doing great. Your instincts are there. Don't compare yourself to anyone else or to anyone else's story, because your story is unique and it's what you need to make you the person you're supposed to be. And I would just want them to take the stress, take the pressure, and take the judgment off of them. Either the judgment that they're putting on themselves or that they think society or other mothers are putting on themselves, because you are enough. All this little person needs is you, so you don't have to be anything more than who you are. And I hope my story is encouraging to any mother or any woman thinking about having kids, that you can do it and you'll be surprised by how strong you really are. So you might recognize me from the Late Night Experiment with Motown Maurice. I'm just kidding, obviously. I was in one episode. It was season 1, episode 6. I was dancing with a lot of familiar friends, and it was just a really nice time because you make a lot of really good friends in this business, but you're all so busy that it's hard to come together. And so that day I got to dress up, wear a little party dress, and all of us just ate and danced and laughed, and it was just really fun. So I had a great time on the set. Love Motown Maurice. You have to watch the Late Night Experiment with Motown Maurice, because this guy is more passionate than almost anybody I've met in this industry, and he puts everything into his projects. It really is like a labor of love for him, and he's funny, he's goofy, but you can really tell that the passion and the love is there. So I would encourage you, if you haven't seen an episode, you should check it out.
Now this is a tale of a late night host. He's strong, he's brave, he's sure. His name is Motown Maurice. Subscribe and please explore. Subscribe and please explore.